In February 1945, with the Reich collapsing, German U-864 slipped out of Norway on a top-secret mission to Japan, codenamed Operation Caesar. Her cargo included jet engine blueprints, V-2 rocket parts, and 67 tons of highly toxic mercury for weapons production. But she never made it out of the North Sea. In a fatal miscalculation, her commander surfaced, believing he was safe, only to be detected by the British submarine HMS Venturer. What followed was the only documented instance in history of one submerged submarine sinking another. For 58 years, U-864 and its lethal cargo lay undisturbed. Now its discovery has revealed a shocking new problem. The thousands of fragile mercury flasks are corroding, threatening an environmental catastrophe. How did the British commander achieve the impossible, calculating a four-dimensional firing solution against a moving submerged target? And what is the ticking time bomb that this Nazi ghost ship has become on the seafloor? The answers to these questions reveal both military genius and environmental nightmare. Lieutenant Jimmy Launders, 25-year-old officer on HMS Venturer, accomplished what naval experts considered impossible, manually calculating a four-dimensional firing solution that accounted for his submarine's position, the enemy's speed, depth, and direction, plus the travel time of torpedoes through water. Without computers, using only slide rules and intuition, he executed history's only successful submerged submarine attack on another submerged vessel. But this remarkable achievement created Europe's most dangerous underwater toxic waste site. Those 67 tons of mercury, enough to fill a small swimming pool, now lie scattered across the seafloor in deteriorating containers. Each day, approximately 4 kilograms leak into the surrounding ecosystem, contaminating marine life and threatening coastal communities. This is no ordinary shipwreck. It is a toxic time bomb that Norwegian authorities struggle to neutralize. By January 1945, Nazi Germany faced inevitable defeat. The Reich was crumbling under relentless Allied bombing. Soviet forces approached Berlin from the east, and American troops pushed through Western Europe. Yet, in this desperate hour, Hitler's military planners conceived one final operation that might prolong the war: Operation Caesar. The plan was audacious. It aimed to transfer Germany's most advanced weapons technology to their Japanese allies, who still maintained significant fighting capacity in the Pacific. This was not merely about sharing knowledge. It was about transferring actual prototypes, blueprints, and the critical materials needed for weapons production. The designated vessel was U-864, a Type 1XD2 submarine specifically designed for long-range missions. With a maximum range exceeding 23,700 miles, it could theoretically travel to Japan without refueling. Captain Ralph Reimar Wolfram commanded the vessel with a carefully selected crew of 73 sailors and technicians. Among them were German weapons scientists who would help implement the technology in Japanese factories. The cargo manifest read like an apocalyptic wish list: detailed plans for the revolutionary Messerschmitt, Me-26 jet fighter which outperformed any Allied aircraft, guidance systems for V-2 rockets, the world's first ballistic missiles, and most crucially, 67 tons of liquid mercury stored in 1,857 steel flasks. This mercury was not merely valuable. It was essential for producing detonators and explosive triggers that Japanese weapons manufacturers desperately needed. Intelligence reports suggest the operation had been planned with meticulous secrecy. The submarine was specially modified, with additional cargo compartments welded into the keel and pressure hull. The mercury alone weighed more than the submarine's typical torpedo complement, requiring careful ballast calculations to maintain stability during the treacherous journey. What the Germans did not know was that British intelligence had already compromised their plans. Through the top-secret Ultra program, which had broken German encryption codes, Royal Navy commanders received detailed information about Operation Caesar, including the submarine's planned route and estimated departure time. The British response was immediate. HMS Venturer, a V-class submarine under the command of 25-year-old Lieutenant Jimmy Launders, was dispatched to patrol the Norwegian coast near Bergen. Launders was an experienced submarine commander despite his youth, having already sunk multiple enemy vessels. This mission would test his skills beyond anything he had previously attempted. For days, Venturer lurked in the frigid waters off Norway's coast, maintaining near-complete silence to avoid detection. The British submarine had technological advantages, particularly its ASTIC sonar system, which could detect underwater objects at significant distances. In contrast, German submarines relied primarily on hydrophones, which were effective at hearing enemy vessels but less precise for locating them. Launders positioned his submarine along U-864's most likely escape route, where deep waters would allow the German vessel to maneuver freely while traveling north toward the Arctic Passage that would eventually lead to Japan. The patience required was extraordinary. Submariners often spent 18 to 20 hours per day at their stations, in cramped, cold conditions, maintaining absolute silence for hours. On February 9, 1945, after multiple mechanical delays, U-864 finally departed its Bergen bunker. The submarine initially proceeded according to plan, navigating through defensive minefields via a secret channel. Captain Wolfram, confident in German naval supremacy in these coastal waters, made a critical decision that would seal his vessel's fate. Experiencing engine trouble, specifically one of the diesel engines was making excessive noise, Wolfram ordered the submarine to surface. This decision seemed reasonable at the time. No British submarines had ever been confirmed operating so close to Norwegian shores. Surfacing would allow the crew to make necessary repairs, clear the exhaust system, and recharge batteries for the long underwater journey ahead. But at approximately 10 o'clock, while U-864 cruised on the surface, HMS Venturer's hydrophone operators detected the distinctive sound of diesel engines. Launders immediately ordered a cautious approach, using periscope observations to confirm the target's identity. When U-864 spotted the periscope, Wolfram immediately ordered an emergency dive, beginning an underwater game of cat and mouse that would make naval history. The German captain believed his submarine's superior speed and maneuverability underwater would allow him to evade the British vessel. He executed a series of course changes, varying depth and speed in textbook evasion tactics. For 4 hours, the two submarines circled each other in the murky North Sea depths, neither commander certain of the other's exact position. What happened next would revolutionize submarine warfare doctrine forever. Lieutenant Launders faced a seemingly impossible challenge: calculate a firing solution against a submerged maneuvering target, using only manual calculations. Modern submarine commanders rely on sophisticated computers to solve this problem. But in 1945, Launders had only slide rules, trigonometric tables, and his crew's mathematical skills. The calculation had to account for 4 dimensions: the target's bearing, its depth, its speed, and the torpedo's travel time through water. This was not just aiming at where the enemy was. Launders had to predict where U-864 would be by the time his torpedoes arrived, while also accounting for the German vessel's evasive maneuvers. It was like trying to hit a moving target in 3-dimensional space, while also factoring in the 4th dimension: time. For 3 tense hours, Launders and his fire control team worked through these calculations, updating them continuously as U-864's movements were tracked by hydrophone bearings. The estimated range was 900 meters, close enough for a reliable shot, but far enough that torpedoes would take nearly a minute to reach their target, giving the German submarine ample time to change course. At 17:12 hours, Launders made the unprecedented decision to fire all 4 of Venturer's forward torpedoes in a carefully timed sequence, creating a spread pattern that would maximize chances of interception regardless of U-864's evasive actions. Each torpedo was aimed at a slightly different predicted position, essentially covering all possible escape routes. The 4 Mark 8 torpedoes left Venturer's tubes at 12-second intervals, creating a deadly underwater net closing around U-864. The German crew, alerted by the sound of torpedo motors, executed a desperate evasive dive, but Launders had anticipated this exact maneuver. At approximately 17:14 hours, the 3rd torpedo in the sequence struck U-864 amidships, triggering a catastrophic breach of the pressure hull. At a depth of 160 meters, the pressure differential would have caused an instantaneous implosion, killing all 73 crew members within seconds. The submarine broke into 2 main sections, plummeting to the seafloor with its deadly cargo. Naval historians unanimously recognize this as the only confirmed instance in warfare history where one fully submerged submarine successfully detected, tracked, and sank another fully submerged submarine. The technical achievement was so remarkable that British naval academies still study Launders' calculations as a masterclass in submarine warfare. The strategic impact was immediate and significant. The technology transfer to Japan was thwarted, potentially saving thousands of Allied lives in the Pacific theater. The advanced jet fighter plans, rocket guidance systems, and weapons scientists were lost to the depths, along with the critical mercury supply that Japanese weapons manufacturers desperately needed. For his extraordinary achievement, Lieutenant Launders received the Distinguished Service Order, one of Britain's highest military honors. The citation specifically noted the cold calculation, judgment, and skill that led to an outstanding submarine operation. Yet for all its historical significance, the sinking of U-864 remained largely unknown to the public for decades. The operation was classified under British naval secrecy protocols, and Cold War priorities quickly shifted attention to nuclear submarine development. The wreck site itself was imprecisely marked on navigational charts, its exact location and deadly cargo forgotten as generations passed. Norwegian fishing vessels routinely operated in the area, unaware of the toxic time bomb lying below. Commercial fishing thrived in these productive waters, with the catch distributed throughout European markets. Meanwhile, beneath the waves, a slow-motion environmental disaster began unfolding. The steel flasks containing liquid mercury, designed for transport rather than long-term storage, began deteriorating under the corrosive influence of seawater. The submarine's broken hull offered little protection, exposing the containers to harsh submarine conditions. By the 1970s, subtle environmental changes were occurring in the region. Local fishermen reported declining catches near the wreck site, though they had no way of knowing the cause. Marine biologists noted unusual behavior in certain fish species, but lacked data to connect these observations to specific contamination. Through the 1980s and the 1990s, scientific testing began detecting elevated mercury levels in fish caught near the Bergen coast. Initial theories focused on industrial pollution from mainland sources, as Norway's growing petroleum industry had increased chemical discharges into coastal waters. Mercury is particularly dangerous because it bioaccumulates in marine organisms. Small amounts ingested by plankton become concentrated in small fish, with levels multiplying at each step up the food chain. By the time mercury reaches predatory fish like cod or mackerel, staples of the Norwegian fishing industry, concentrations can be thousands of times higher than ambient water levels. The health effects of mercury poisoning are severe and often irreversible. Methylmercury attacks the central nervous system, causing tremors, memory problems, neuromuscular effects, and kidney damage. Pregnant women exposed to mercury risk devastating birth defects in their children, including cerebral palsy and severe developmental delays. By the late 1990s, Norwegian environmental authorities had become alarmed enough to launch systematic testing of seafloor sediments, attempting to locate the source of contamination. Using increasingly sophisticated sonar equipment, they began mapping suspicious anomalies along the seabed, where U-864 was believed to have sunk. In March 2003, after an extensive search operation, the Norwegian Navy mine hunter KNM located the wreckage approximately 2 nautical miles off Norway's Fedje Island. Remotely operated vehicles called ROVs, equipped with cameras, confirmed what naval historians had long suspected. This was indeed U-864, broken into 2 major sections approximately 150 meters apart, resting at a depth of 150 meters. The ROV footage revealed a disturbing scene. The submarine's midsection had been completely destroyed by the torpedo impact, scattering debris across a wide area of seabed. More alarming were the visible signs of the cargo. Hundreds of rusty, deteriorating steel flasks, many already breached and leaking their toxic contents into the surrounding sediment. Environmental scientists immediately collected sediment and water samples, confirming their worst fears. Mercury concentrations near the wreck reached 100,000 times normal background levels. The contamination had spread in a roughly elliptical pattern covering approximately 30,000 square meters of seafloor, carried by underwater currents that constantly shifted the toxic deposits. Marine biologists examining fish from the region found mercury concentrations far exceeding safety standards for human consumption. The contamination had entered the food chain at multiple levels, from bottom-dwelling crustaceans to commercially valuable fish species. The Norwegian government faced an unprecedented crisis. This was not merely a historical shipwreck. It was one of Europe's largest point sources of mercury pollution, leaking approximately 4 kilograms of toxic metal into the marine environment every year. Immediate action was essential, but the technical challenges were enormous. The Norwegian Coastal Administration established a commission of international experts to evaluate response options. Two primary approaches emerged: complete removal of the wreck and its cargo, or entombment of the site beneath a protective layer to prevent further contamination. The removal option presented extreme technical challenges. Raising the fragmented submarine sections risked catastrophic mercury releases during the operation. Many of the mercury flasks had shifted position over decades, becoming partially buried in sediment or lodged within crushed compartments of the wreck. Salvage experts estimated that recovery operations might actually release more mercury than would naturally leak over decades. The entombment option proposed covering the entire contaminated area with a thick layer of sand, topped with concrete or other protective materials, to create a permanent barrier between the mercury and the marine environment. This approach avoided the risks of disturbance but left the toxic material permanently on the seafloor, requiring monitoring in perpetuity. By 2014, after years of study, the Norwegian government initially approved a 1.6 billion kroner salvage operation, approximately $200 million. But further technical assessments raised serious concerns about recovery feasibility, leading to reconsideration of the entombment option. The debate continues to this day, with environmental groups, fishing industry representatives, and government agencies locked in contentious disagreement. Meanwhile, the mercury continues to leak, with increasing evidence of ecological damage spreading beyond the immediate area. The U-864 incident represents a unique paradox, a brilliant military victory that created an environmental disaster spanning generations. Lieutenant Launder's remarkable achievement in 1945 prevented Nazi technology from reaching Japanese hands, potentially saving countless Allied lives. Yet that same success now threatens marine ecosystems and human health decades after the war's end. The case highlights how the environmental consequences of warfare often extend far beyond the conflict's immediate timeline. World War II ended in 1945, but the U-864's toxic legacy continues, with mercury expected to leak for at least another century without intervention. For naval historians, the incident remains the ultimate example of submarine warfare skill, a four-dimensional chess game played in the darkness of the ocean depths, where mathematical precision meant the difference between life and death. For environmental scientists, it represents one of the most challenging toxic cleanup scenarios on Earth, complicated by depth, currents, and the physical deterioration of both wreck and cargo. Perhaps most importantly, U-864 serves as a warning about the unexpected connections between military innovation and environmental consequences. The revolutionary naval tactics that sank the submarine have now created an equally revolutionary challenge for environmental engineers: how to neutralize a toxic threat unlike any other on the planet. Today, as Norway continues debating containment strategies, local fishing communities still face restrictions and economic hardship. Environmental monitoring shows mercury continuing to spread through marine food webs, potentially reaching dinner tables throughout Northern Europe, despite fishing bans in the immediate area. The wreck of U-864 serves as a unique reminder that the most brilliant tactical innovations can cast the longest shadows. In the icy waters off Norway, a moment of naval genius has become a generational challenge, proof that victory and consequence are often separated by decades. If you want to dive deeper into naval history mysteries and environmental challenges like this one, subscribe to Ocean Attacks. We're exploring the hidden dangers lurking beneath the waves that continue to affect our world today. Hit the subscribe button, enable notifications, and join us next week as we uncover another forgotten chapter of maritime history, with consequences that reach right into the present day.